Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat.
Resolves.
Now, before you attack
Does
me,
anyone have an answer?
well played.
Good game.
Hello, Magic fans. This is DJ with the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and I would like to talk about a new product that might be under your radar because it's not really designed for Commander players. It's the Game Night game, but it does come with 5 unique cards only found in that product. Last year, I looked at the 5 unique cards from the previous Game Night set, and those were pretty cool, but this year for Game Night 2019, I think the legendaries are very interesting for Commander, so I wanted to take a look at them. First, last year's cards, which again, might be something you're not used to. Militant Angel, a 5 CMC flying angel that can produce some tutus. Inspired Sphinx, a 7 CMC Sphinx that can draw some cards and create some tokens. Rot Hulk, this is the one people were most excited about because it's 7 CMC for a big menacing zombie and it can pull other zombies from the graveyard back onto the battlefield. That reanimation effect could be very, very powerful for a late game hit. Goblin Goliath, 6 CMC, can create some goblins and can double damage as an activated ability. Very cool. Usually goblin decks are a little bit lower to the ground, so I actually welcome a bigger goblin that you can bring into the late game and make goblins a little bit more relevant in Commander. And finally, Avatar of Growth, which should be the big green creature, ends up costing way less, even though it says 6 CMC. This spell is 1 less to cast for each opponent you have. So often this is 1 green for a 4/4 trample, and everyone searches for 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield. So that's if you care a lot more about your ramping and you're going to use your ramp more than your opponents do. In the end, these cards did not really thrill or wow everyone. It could definitely go in some of your decks, and I particularly like that Rot Hulk. But this year's set is actually up a notch. I think that they are really relevant, and so I wanted to put them on your radar because they could be exactly what you want in your Commander deck. Let's kind of go in order of power. The lowest power level I think is Highcliff Felidar. 5 white for a 5/5 Vigilant Cat Beast. When Highcliff Felidar enters the battlefield for each opponent, choose a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls, destroy those creatures. So this can regularly destroy 3 creatures. That's a pretty good enter the battlefield effect. This is not something new though. Luminate Primordial is very cheap, it's just a bulk rare. Still 7 mana, 4/7 Vigilance. Those are comparable stats, and when it enters the battlefield for each opponent, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls, and that player gains life equal to its power. So Luminate Primordial can actually hit specific creatures. And so if there's a small, Deathrite Shaman that's messing up your game, you can go after that, whereas Highcliff Felidar has to go after the creature with the greatest power. Luminate Primordial does have your opponent's gain life, but I don't care. So this is really something that I'm not too interested in, unless you can take advantage of that cat beast action. If you have an Arabo Roar of the World or any other cat-themed deck, then this is a slam dunk. Sometimes cats are just small and you want big cats with big abilities, and so Highcliff Felidar could be exactly what you're looking for in your cat deck. Let's go on to the next most powerful card, which is Sphinx of Enlightenment. 4 blue for a 5/5 flying Sphinx. When Sphinx of Enlightenment enters the battlefield, target opponent draws a card. You draw 3 cards. Okay, the pure card draw on Sphinx of Enlightenment is very, very good. I mean, I've regularly played 5 mana for drawing 3 cards, and that's fine. And then you're paying 6 mana for a 5/5 flying attached to it. You can blink this. A lot of people really point at letting your opponent draw a card as a downside, but if you are politicking for that card, or if you're making sure that your opponent gives you a favor for that card, then oftentimes Sphinx of Enlightenment can get you more. You can get more than a card's value out of it. I'm comparing this to Unesh Cryosphinx Sphinx Sovereign because, this is a 6 mana flying Sphinx that can generate a couple cards of advantage. By the way, if you're running an Unesh deck, Sphinx of Enlightenment becomes a slam dunk. Are you kidding me? You love card draw on your Sphinxes, so this just seems to be perfect. A card that's comparable at this time, another 5/5 flyer, could be Cavalier of Gales. It only draws you one card, but it lets you see multiple cards. Cavalier of Gales is very, very good, and so the fact that Sphinx of Enlightenment could be compared to Cavalier means that we've got ourselves a really, really solid card. And I like this card more because of the politics. And of course, Unesh combinations are great. The next most powerful card is in green, Earthshaker Giant. 4 green for a 6/6 trampling giant druid. When Earthshaker Giant enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. That is exactly Overrun. Overrun is not the most powerful card in Commander, but very playable, and Overrun is 5 mana. This is 1 additional mana to add a 6/6 trampler to the equation. And oftentimes enter the battlefield effects are more powerful than spells anyways, because we want to flicker Earthshaker Giant or manipulate it as a creature, like cheat it into play or bring it out of the graveyard, something like that. So one thing that makes this feel not as good is because there are points of comparison that are way better. This is not Craterhoof Behemoth. Craterhoof Behemoth is insane. Like, we're not getting another Craterhoof Behemoth, sorry. But Craterhoof Behemoth is also 8 mana. Craterhoof Behemoth is also, very problematic and a very singular card. Let's compare it to other creatures, maybe Endrace Forerunners, that only buffs their team +2/+2 and is also 8 mana. While bringing it down to 6, maybe this becomes like Pathbreaker Ibex, where you can kind of pump your team a little bit and then still have this relevant body. But to be fair, if this is somewhere in between a Pathbreaker Ibex and an Endrace Forerunners, then this could be very, very good. This could even be more aggressive than some of these 8-drops. Getting up to 8 is hard. Getting up to 6 in Commander with a couple elves, man, that could be easy. And remember, this leaves a 6/6 trampler behind. This is just a value giant right here. So I think that this is incredibly powerful, and we're always looking for more Craterhoof Behemoth-like effects, and this could be one of the better ones. We're getting up there in power level. Let's take a look at Calculating Lich. 4 black for a 5/5 menacing zombie wizard. Whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents, that player loses 1 life. Oh, I like this a lot. So this is sort of an anthem for your own creatures. So it's kind of like every creature you have gets +1/+1, because when they attack your opponents, then they're dealing 1 additional damage. That's like adding 1 power, 1 unblockable power. It's very good. One reason why I like this card a lot is because I'm a huge fan of Brutal Horde Chief, but Brutal Horde Chief can't fit in every deck because it's Mardu, but Calculating Lich definitely can. But it actually goes one step beyond Brutal Horde Chief and pumping your own creatures, because this affects any creature that attacks an opponent. That means that this becomes a very political effect, like the Hiji Honored one that pumps all of your opponent's creatures +2/+0 as long as they're not attacking you. Calculating Lich can help aim your opponent's damage at each other, pumping them and letting them drain your opponents but not letting them come at you. This is very political, and if you can line up certain attacks against your opponents, well, you can make sure that they have a lower and lower power level. Very aggressive. I also like combining this with cards like Disrupt Decorum, because that can force your opponents to send damage at each other, and Calculating Lich can multiply that damage. Speaking of multiplying damage, the top card of this set is the red one, and it is crazy good. Fiendish Duo. 4 red for a 5/5 first striking devil. If a source would deal damage to an opponent, it deals double that damage to that player instead. Oh my gosh. Doubling damage is a very, very powerful effect. And for 6 mana, it's not that bad. Speaking of which, if this is able to get damage through, this could deal 10 to your opponent. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I also like that it's a devil. This could be a Rakdos Showstopper inclusion, but I think if I'm going to compare it to something, it'd be Angrath's Marauders. 5 red for a 4/4. So automatically the stats on Fiendish Duo is better. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. The big difference is because this impacts permanents that includes like creatures and stuff like that, whereas Fiendish Duo only doubles the damage dealt to an opponent. but that might be the exact effect you need, and sometimes doubling damage can be very dangerous. Dictated the Twin Gods and Furnace of Wrath, those double damage, but those double damage universally, so you feel like you might be the victim of double damage coming back at you. So Fiendish Duo definitely protects yourself from this double damage and doubles tons of damage to everyone else. Also, this works for your opponents as well. So everything that I said about calculating Lich is true here. If you can send your opponents at each other, manipulate the battlefield so that they're dealing damage to one another, then Fiendish Duo is going to double that damage and it's going to close out the game so quickly. Man, I am just impressed at how powerful a card this is. I would include this in like sneak attack decks or an Ilharg deck, or maybe even like a Fire Song and Sunspeaker deck or a Heartless Hidetsugu deck. Oh my gosh, the options are really limitless. I think that this is a really powerful card, and you can only find it in the Game Night product. So you have to decide for yourself, hey, do I want to buy these as singles? Because they're going to be pretty expensive. The Game Night product is between $30 and $40. And that's kind of carried the price over into all of these singles because there are not a lot of powerful reprints in that box set. And so Fiendish Duo and all these other cards end up pulling in all of that price. So these all end up being pretty expensive. If you are interested in getting all 5, then you might be able to get a deal from the sponsor of the Jumbo Commander, Cool Stuff Inc. Right now they have it for $29.99. That's the whole box set, and that'll have all 5 of these cards in it. And just looking around, that's better than Amazon and better than a lot of other competitors. But, you know, it's Black Friday, so do some shopping around and find out if these cards are cool or if you want them in your decks. But odds are you might not see them because you're not seeing them in, you know, Eldraine packs. You're not seeing them announced everywhere. And most people won't even play Game Night. And so I wanted to call them to your attention because these could fit into your cat deck or your Sphinx deck or your Rakdos Showstopper deck or Zombie deck or even Druid Tribal deck. I mean, there's so many decks that these would be slam dunk cards in, and I don't want them to go unnoticed. So pay attention and pick them up if you want them. I want to thank Cool Stuff Inc. And if you click on the link in the description, it'll take you over to their website. And if you use Jumbo5, you'll get 5% off. Oh my gosh, that's less than $30 for Game Night. Amazing. And then finally, I want to thank my patrons. Thank you so much, patrons. You are amazing. I am so thankful for all of you. And thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.